Hello, Tim, and everybody else out there who is reading this or watching this or whatever you call it. Yeah, this is my attempt at our little chapter thing. I'm doing it on a webcam on a laptop, so it might be a little bit strange. I've got to read about there, so I'll be reading with my eyes down all the time, but I'll try and look up. Yeah, this is my first time with a webcam, so we'll see how we go. Hopefully I talk loud enough, and I haven't actually timed this out either, Tim, so don't kill me here if it goes a little bit too long. I think we can have longer ones for our first ones just to get us going, but I have a feeling it could take me a little couple more minutes more than 4, but I don't really know. We'll see. Anyway, here we go. Sally Gist has a lisp, she'll never feel a boyfriend's kiss. It wasn't the most original insult Sally had heard, and being 9, Sally doesn't actually want an icky boyfriend in the first place. But standing there with it repeated over and over by 3 angry girls a lot bigger and a lot more popular than she was, Sally started to feel like it was something that she should be upset about, even if she didn't fully understand what it was they were on about. She could feel her cheeks burning, so she kept her face down, praying no one would see how red she knew she would be turning. She stabbed up some sand with her shovel and hoped they thought she was ignoring them. After what seemed like an eternity to Sally, but was really only 30 seconds, the girls decided the first verse had been repeated enough times to get the point across, and another verse was added to spice things up a bit. It kept the general theme and tone of the first one. Sally Gisp has a lisp, she'll never feel a boyfriend's kiss. She tries to speak, but she's a freak, she won't even get a peck on the cheek. Well, that just shows what they know, Sally thought to herself smugly. I've already had my first kiss. Bobby Gibbons kissed me on the cheek last month, so there. She decided she would tell them as much, put them in their place a little, as her daddy would say, but for some reason it just made them laugh at her. Perhaps they were laughing at themselves, realizing how silly they'd been, Sally thought to herself hopefully. As it turned out, though, that wasn't it at all. Ooh, Bobby kissed Sally. They're gonna get married, chirped Brooke to her friends, who were falsely trying to hide their embarrassment by snickering to each other's shoulders. They all started singing again, but this time it was a classic. Sally and Bobby sitting in the tree, Kissi, and so on. Sally sighed to herself. There was just no pleasing these people. No matter how many times she tries to tell them they're wrong, they always find a way to twist it to their advantage. Hopefully if she just takes it for a while, they'll get bored and leave her alone, or see that little red-haired kid over there and go and steal his lunch money. As nasty as the taunts were, considering Brooke Blake and her 2 best friends, Angela and Sam, had a combined IQ equaling that of a moderately intelligent hippopotamus, their little ditty was a stroke of pure inspirational genius. So inspired that now a couple of kids nearby, not even part of the rhyme's creation, drifted over and joined in the chorus. It was a pity Brooke's gang never put as much thought into their schoolwork as they did with their insults. Perhaps then they'll get better grades. Perhaps that's why they're so mean to me all the time, Sally thought to herself as the girls started pushing her around like a ball on a piece of rope, with onlookers all pointing and laughing. Perhaps if I offer to help with them with their homework, and that would make them feel better. If I get a moment when they stop pushing me, I'll suggest it. But the pushing doesn't stop, and neither does the taunting. They have never bullied her this much before. Sally had had enough. She could feel her body trembling with rage. She wrestled herself out of their grasp and spun around to face them defiantly. Her mind flurried with a torrent of insults she wanted to unleash on them, but instead she said the first one that sounded right. Shut up! Just shut up! Okay, so perhaps she was looking for something a little smarter than that, but at least it got the point across. As soon as she said it, though, she regretted it. The sh sound was always the hardest for her lisp to get around. It always came out thick. So saying shut up made her sound positively ridiculous. But her heart skipped a beat as the girls stopped, stunned for a second. Perhaps they hadn't noticed. Perhaps they'd been so in awe of her sudden outburst that they hadn't noticed the lisp this time. She was about to turn away, triumphantly, and do her victory march across the playground when the girls started laughing again. They started to sing their song again. Sally Gisp has a lisp, and the others joined in as well. Sally scolded herself. She was never that lucky. Of course the girls heard the lisp. Her mummy had once told her that people would get used to so used to the lisp they wouldn't even notice it was there. Sally had been waiting a long time now, yet no one seemed to be getting used to it yet. Sally didn't know why people had to be so mean. She always tried to be nice to everyone she met. A stranger is just a friend you haven't met yet, her father always said. But to Sally, a stranger was just someone who hadn't made fun of her lisp yet. She heard her voice get really high and squeaky as she shouted, "Shut up! Just shut up! You're just stupid! Everybody hates you and you're just taking it out on me!" That stopped the girls singing, which would have been good if it didn't make them start frowning like they were contemplating violence of some kind. There was an evil grin in their eyes as they took pleasure in how badly they had upset her. "Ooh, look at Miss Spastic sticking up for herself. What are you going to do to make me stop then? Slobber on me?" Brooke threatened menacingly. Tears were rolling down Sally's cheeks, making tiny puddles on her new red sneakers with the white thunder flashes down the sides. She was trying to bury them in the sand before the girls got the idea that they might look good on Brooke's feet instead. Getting tongue-tied. She wasn't quite sure why, but coming from someone as big as Brooke made the taunts 10 times worse. Perhaps it was because deep down, as much as she protests, Sally feels powerless to make them stop. Little did she know that this was the day that was about to change. Dun, dun, dun. Sally's tears were lugging up the sand like porridge mixed with soup. Sally couldn't remember ever feeling this upset before. She stumbled for a second, searching for the word her big sister called her mum that time she got really angry. Then she remembered it. "You're just bitches!" "Sally Guest!" Sally's heart stopped dead altogether now. It was Mrs. Dubeldire, the most evil, hated and feared teacher in the school. Miss Dubeldire taught one of the Year 2 classes, and Sally was praying she never got her as a teacher next year, her and every other kid in school. Miss Dubeldire was old, with spectacles clinging to the end of her nose, dark grey hair that was strapped tight to her head by 3 well-placed hair clips, and she walked with a limp and a cane, which she liked to wrap over your knees, just enough to make a red mark, but never enough to bruise. Sally had always managed to stay off Miss Dubeldire's scolding radar, but now she was in full storm mode. She came storming across the schoolyard as the kids who had joined in earlier were now scampering to get out of the blast radius. Brooke and her gang were backing off slowly, taking a position a few steps back so they could get the best viewing of the show. "I never thought I would see the day that Sally Gist would use such language. Up to the principal's office with you, young lady, this instant." She stamped her foot and thrust her finger in the direction of the principal's office. "I will be calling your father right away, young lady. I am shocked, simply shocked. Off you go." Sally didn't say a word. She may not have been in trouble with Miss Dubeldire before, but every kid in school knows you don't talk back to Miss Dubeldire, even if you know you are right. It is best just to slump your head, say "yes ma'am" and go quietly, flomping your way to the principal's office, doing what the kids in the playground call the walk of death. Sally's mind flurried with ideas of the fate that could be in store for her. Perhaps they would send her away. Perhaps they would put her in a small cell and feed her scraps of bread for her lunch. Perhaps they would ask her to leave and never come back. Perhaps her parents would have to quit their jobs and move. Whatever was in store, Sally was amazed how much bigger the playground changed after you'd gotten in trouble. It was like it took 3 times longer than it usually does for Sally to cross, and every kid in the playground was looking at her. Some were snickering, some were offering sympathetic eyes, some were just plain happy it wasn't them. Principal Lipkis's office was old-fashioned, and his favourite brown Principal Lipkis's office was as old-fashioned as his favourite brown biker's jacket, that he wore all the time because he wanted to be cool for the kids. There was a big old oak desk sitting in the middle of the room, facing the window, so Mr. Lipkis could stare out at any mischief makers from the comfort of his desk. This is where you would find him if he was doing his rounds. This is where you would always find him. So Sally thought it a little strange that she had been waiting for 10 minutes and he hadn't shown up yet. Sally was watching the second hand move around on the old grandfather clock, sitting in the... I'm going to cut that out actually. Why was she the one in trouble? Why was she the one going to be locked in the cellar? Why was she the one that was always being picked on? Why was that little shiny silver thing over there in the bookcase have a little red light on it that is flashing so intently? Perhaps it was a new type of cell phone, and it was ringing on silent. She went over and picked it up and rolled it around in her hand. This is messy because I'm changing it. It was smooth and cold to the touch, and a little light was blinking, even more furiously now. Should she answer it? How would she do that if she wanted to? She flipped it about in her hand a little more until she felt something slide, a little switch that she found at the top of the little device. She pushed a little further, and suddenly a beam of light shot out of the end of the pen and cast a huge glow across the room. Sally wasn't sure what happened next, or how she came to be sitting next to Mr. Lipkiss, who was talking to her as if he'd been there for a very long time. She looked around, taken back by her sudden change of location. Mr. Lipkiss was a middle-aged man, with a big bald spot starting in the middle of his head that was progressively moving out in all directions and taking more territory. He had big bushy eyebrows and a big bushy moustache that would retain the crumbs of the turkey sandwiches he would bring for his lunch every day. Little bits were falling on the desk in front of him as he spoke. "Now, I could have a talk to Brooke and the girls if you would like, but a lot of the time that can just make the matters worse. I mean, they're not going to be very happy with you if you get them into trouble, now are they? Think about how much they'll bully you then. Why don't you just stick in there and ride it through, huh? They can't torment you forever now, can they?" His whole face was smiling to show just how good a guy he was. Sally quickly stammered, "Silver pen," but stopped when she saw that it wasn't there anymore in the bookcase, but sitting on the desk in front of them both. "Ah, yes, this little thing. Got it last time I went on safari. Some old Egyptian man gave it to me. Said it was a very important and dangerous item, which could bring death to any that possess it. Pretty spooky, huh?" Still disorientated, Sally agreed that yes, it was very spooky indeed. "So what do you say, kiddo? How about you each try and put this whole bad day behind us, and you go back to your lunchtime? Oops, no, that's over now, isn't it? Well, you go back off to class then." "Yes, sir," Sally said solemnly. She, still confused and disorientated, she slipped off her seat and made her way out, but she stopped when her hand got to the doorknob. Something had just occurred to her. She turned around, almost too scared to see if she was right. "Sir?" "Yes, Sally?" Mr. Lipkiss asked, obviously not hearing what Sally heard. "Sir?" Sally said again. This time tears of excitement were starting to drip on her new red shoes with a lightning stroke down the side. "Yes, Sally, what is it?" "Listen, can you hear it? I don't have my lisp. My lisp is gone. I can say lisp without a lisp." Sally didn't wait for a response. She ran out of the office quicker than a bullet, and her thoughts were of home. There was still the rest of the school day to go, so she would have to wait, but she couldn't wait to race through the front door and shout "Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious" at her parents. She had never felt this happy in her life. She had never had something this good happen to her, ever. She was Sally Gist with a lisp no more. Okay, so I didn't read that perfectly. I certainly got tangled up there when I got to that little bit. So that's always going to be the trouble of reading this, and that was, of course, as I said, way too flipping long. It's probably just the pace that I read it in my head is not the pace that I read it out loud, obviously, but yeah, that's my basic gist of what I'm going for. Sally Gist, yeah. There we go. I don't think there's much else to say apart from see yours next time, I suppose, Jen. That's about it. That was my idea. Doesn't work completely together, especially when you're reading it out. It's a little bit different, isn't it? But yeah. Anyway, bye.